Hello, everyone. This is Frank Gray. I appreciate you joining me on this journey in the third part of our Aspire Buyer Conversion series entitled Show and Sell, subtitled A Proven Strategy for Showing Homes That Results in a Contract, a Closing, and a Commission. We say that because buyers don't always result in a contract, a closing, and a commission. If you hang around me very long, you're going to hear one of my core beliefs is that buyers are the biggest threat to the efficiency of your business. Buyers really don't care that they waste your time, money, energy, gasoline. They really are not bothered at all by the fact that they could sabotage the profitability of your business and even your very viability as a real estate agent. They just want somebody to drive around and show them pretty houses. So buyers pose this great threat to your business, but they're also delightful to work with. Most agents will tell you they would much rather work with a buyer than a seller. Buyers are typically happy at the closing table. They just purchased their dream home, whereas sellers are often grumpy. If you sold it fast for over list price, they think you underpriced it. If you took a while to sell it, maybe normal days on market, then they think that you're not up to snuff on your marketing skills. But buyers are almost universally happy at closing. We love working with buyers. I'm encouraging you to work with buyers. However, you have to take control of buyers. You have to be the professional in the relationship. If you want a contract, a closing, and a commission, you have to know right up front the pitfalls of working with buyers and how to proactively manage them and the process so that the desired end result is achieved. Along the way, you're going to have to develop some discernment skills. Is this person a real buyer? Because that's the threat to the efficiency of our business. Everybody claims to be a buyer. They say they are willing and able to purchase a home, but time will tell whether or not that's true. The danger is if you let time tell, then you've already destroyed the efficiency of your business. You've wasted multiple Saturday and Sunday afternoons and weekday evenings. What you want is a process which will tell right up front whether or not these people are real buyers. And that's what we'll be covering, as well as a whole bunch of other wonderful stuff in this class, Show and Sell. Let's get right into it. Phase one in our strategy is to get ready for these buyers, okay? Cinch up that tie, put on those pads, you're ready to go. Number one, stay safe. 2, gather your tools. Number 3, set buyer expectations. 4, put together your showing list. 5, get a pre-approval lender from your lender. Let's jump right in. Staying safe. I'm going to encourage you to get proof of identity before you meet someone for the first time. Quite often we come into contact with buyers through our social media strategy or web pages where we have created leads. Maybe even we're purchasing leads from Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, something like that. So this is not somebody we have an established relationship with. I'm going to strongly encourage you to require them to send you some proof of identity before you meet with them at the property or even at a third-party location. Now, this is not going to be necessary if they're meeting you at the office during business hours, but that's not often how it happens. So ask them to send you a copy of their driver's license, military ID, something of that nature. Back in 1992, when I first moved to Houston, selling homes for the David Weekley Company in Katy, Texas, I went to rent an apartment on Mason Road, and at that time the leasing agent, 1992, would not even show me an apartment until I had given her my actual driver's license and she had locked it up in a deposit box within the leasing office. If they were doing that back in 1992, then certainly buyers should not be offended today that we take these very minimal safety precautions. If they push back at all, simply explain that your broker requires that ID be provided when our agents meet clients for the first time. Let them know that your office will receive a copy and will save it in a secure file. Within Abby Realty, here's how we do that. You're going to email it to Mary, my lovely wife, and our office manager, she will save it to a Dropbox folder that's designated for this purpose, to which only she and I have access to. So there will be other people who have access to this information, but it's not widely disseminated. Real buyers won't mind. They'll understand. They'll act like a real buyer. And they'll appreciate your concern for security. If you care about yours, you're going to care about theirs. Predators will refuse. This is one of those processes I mentioned a moment ago where you'll be able to tell right up front, is this a real buyer, a fake buyer, a pretend buyer, or maybe even a predator buyer. So always ask for that ID, and that'll be the first step in your discernment process. Gather your tools. Every real estate agent should have a box or bag somewhere in their car, perhaps in the trunk or behind the seat, where they have some basic tools. This is particularly important when working with buyers. Here's my list: a tape measure, because quite often the buyer will ask you, how big is this bedroom? You could look at your MLS printout, but the listing agent probably didn't measure it. The seller probably didn't measure it. They were probably pulling numbers from a previous listing or from the builder, which may not be accurate at all. So have a tape measure with you. Graphite, that's that little powdered lead that you buy in a small tube at the hardware store that unlocks stuck locks like magic. You don't want to squirt oil in there, and you don't want to be left without any recourse at all, because quite often these homes, especially vacant homes, sat empty for a while. The door lock has not been used and it will freeze up. Many realtors have stories of actually breaking off keys in the lock in an effort to get them open. So just pick up a little tube of graphite, keep it with you in your realtor toolkit, a little squirt in there, and that key lock will turn like butter. Toilet paper, for the obvious reasons. Buyers often have to go to the bathroom, but bathrooms don't always have toilet paper. Again, this is particularly the case in new construction and vacant homes. Number 4, a compass. You already have one. It's on your phone. You have an app for it, but find it. Buyers often will ask you, what is the orientation of the home? For many Asian buyers, it's a matter of feng shui. They want good luck, and so that home has to face east. And there's other considerations as well, but the orientation of the home is very important. Many people have a question about the orientation of the home in relationship to the energy efficiency of the home. They'll want a northern exposure, so they get the eastern sun and the western sun on the sides of the home, where it's less likely to heat up the home, which is the concern in Houston. So just find where that Compass app is, and you'll find yourself being very helpful when your buyers ask. 2 writing pens, one for you, one for them. Enough business cards to leave one at each home. It is a professional courtesy that I encourage all of our agents to practice. When you're in a home, leave a card. That is particularly important if it's an occupied home, because that family has typically left the home for your showing. They've bundled up the kids, they've kenneled the dog, they've turned on the lights, they've baked some bread in the oven, they've gone to great difficulty and inconvenience. They come back to the home. If there's no card, they're not even sure if you were there. And then you may get an angry call from the listing agent. Hey, my buyers left the house and nobody even showed up. So leave that card as a courtesy and proof that you were there. By the way, if you are showing homes in your geofarm, that geographic area that you've identified where you want to become the agent of choice, then I would suggest you go beyond this. As I've done in my geofarms for many years, create a little card. This is like a 3x5 card, a tent card that you can stand up. And it says something along the lines of, thank you for allowing us to show your home. And then on the inside, you'll include just a little bit of a note. The buyers especially liked the outdoor kitchen, something complimentary to the home, and then sign your name. Again, I only did this in my geofarm. You can do it everywhere, but I was trying to establish a reputation among the 450 families I most wanted to work with. It's very possible that that seller will not sell the home with the current listing agent. They'll be looking for an alternative, and that little thank you card would completely set you apart from the other agents. And sellers talk. They're going to talk to their neighbors. They're going to say, hey, did you see what Susie left at my house? She's pretty sharp. I understand she just lives a couple blocks from here, and I'm getting her postcards every month. What a nice person. That's the next level. Number 7, a quick CMA comparing all the homes being showed. So once you've identified all of your homes, you want to list them, input them into HAR one at a time. So just those 8 homes or just those 12 homes. And then at the bottom of the screen, there will be a quick CMA hot button. Just push that and it will create a very short report comparing each one of your showing properties side by side in terms of year built, square footage, number of beds and baths, list price per square foot. That is a very handy guide as you walk through the property. If the buyer wants to compare this home to the last one, it's very easy to look at that and say, well, this home's got about 100 more square feet. Looks like they're asking about $3 more per square foot. So just a nice snapshot of information. And if we succeed in our intent today of writing a contract, you will need that quick CMA to help you determine an appropriate market value of the home and an offer price. Number 8, the MLS single page flyer on each home. I recommend a set for the buyer and a set for yourself. Some agents prefer to do the agent version for themselves and the consumer facing version for your buyers. I typically will print out the agent copy for both. Whatever is in private agent remarks is usually nothing that the buyer shouldn't be aware of, and it's often helpful. It's also just a simpler, more efficient process to print one instead of 2 different documents. Number 9, a blank 1 to 4 family contract, aka the offer contract, because the goal of our efforts this day is to write a contract. So we want to have one handy with us. If you've not already had the buyers sign the IABS, you definitely want to bring them, get initials and a date on that document. TREC requires that the IABS be provided at the first substantive conversation with a buyer. If you have your first conversation with them over the telephone, which is typical, at some point when the conversation moves to a substantive status, they're actually asking you about homes, features, prices, values, school districts, neighborhoods, that type thing. That's substantive. You'll want to ask them for their email address, explain that the Texas Real Estate Commission requires you to provide this disclosure document, and then email it over to them. If they'll initial it and date it and sign it back, that's awesome. If they don't, then certainly when you meet them face-to-face, get them to initial the document and backdate it to when you first provided it. The buyer-tenant rep agreement. If you're doing a one-off showing where a buyer calls you out of the blue and says, hey, I'm very interested in this property, perhaps it's your listing, and they want to go see it, I don't typically recommend the buyer-tenant rep agreement because it can scare them off. I teach that you need to earn the right to ask for their commitment before you ask for their commitment. Now, something I said here, I'm going to backtrack on just a little bit. If you're showing your listing, then absolutely you have to have the buyer-tenant rep agreement. If you're showing a listing that's held by your brokerage, you have to have a buyer-tenant rep agreement. That's because that would be an intermediary relationship, and an intermediary can only be created by written documents. So the seller will have to agree to move to intermediary status in the listing agreement, and the buyer has to give you written permission to move to intermediary through the buyer-tenant rep agreement. So if it is your own listing or one of your broker listings, get it signed. Otherwise, I don't present it to the buyers until we are in the game. And I've put together, 4 or 5 houses showing that we've essentially committed to each other verbally, and now I'm just going to document it with this buyer-tenant rep agreement. If buyers have any heartburn over this, and quite often they do because they think they're signing a contract that's going to be, as binding as the law of the Medes and the Persians, I simply explain to them that this document gives me the right to represent them in the transaction, to advocate for their best interests. And without this document, I am legally required to represent the best interests of the sellers. So in that situation, both the listing agent and the buyer's agent are representing the seller, and the buyer's out here all on their own. No buyer wants to be in that position. I also tell them, and I don't hesitate to write it in the agreement if necessary because of their concerns, that either party can cancel this agreement at any time prior to going under contract. So if they're not happy with my services, if they think they'll be better served by someone else, they simply have to let me know and I'll cancel the agreement. So with those two caveats, I've never had any difficulty in getting the agreement signed, and this is the point at which you'll want to do so. Now, about those showing flyers. Number one, arrange them in order of showing and write that number in the upper right corner. So if you're showing 8 homes, it should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through 8. Bind them with a paper clip or binder clip, not a staple. There's a reason for that. We'll get to it when we get into our show strategy. Write the time of the showing in the upper right-hand corner on each page, right next to the showing order. So number 1, 3 o'clock. Number 2, 3:30, and so on. This is part of the process that you're going to use to manage your buyers. Because again, buyers are the greatest threat to the efficiency of your business. They may drive up to a home and say, oh my goodness, we would never live here. And yet they'll want to go in anyway, and they'll want to spend 45 minutes looking under the cabinets, taking measurements, commenting on the sprinkler system. I mean, it's just maddening. Believe it or not, there are people like that. So you can manage your buyers. This is one way by saying, well, oh my goodness, our next showing appointment is at 3:30. It's now 3:15. It's 15 minutes away. So we need to be scooting out of here so that we can hit our showing window. And they'll start managing themselves by looking at the time and the time of the showings. I found that to be very, very helpful. On your flyers, number 4, also write the method of access, the location of the lockbox. So it's a Supra on the front door, it's a combo on the back gate. If it is a combo or if it's a keyed door lock, you want to write the code on your copy of the flyers, not the buyer's copy. And then any special instructions. Don't let the cat out. Killer dog in the backyard. Don't let small children back there, that type of thing. And then as I'm walking up to the front door and I'm looking at my showing instructions, if there are any special instructions like that, I'll inform the buyers, watch out for that cat, that type of thing. Number 5, let the buyers know that if you ever get separated while traveling from one house to another, because the buyer's typically going to be driving in their own car, they just need to look at the address of the next home and put it into their GPS. All right? Set buyer expectations. This may be the most important information in the entire class in terms of managing your buyers and moving productively toward a contract, a closing, and a commission. So these are statements or conversations that you need to have with your buyers prior to starting the showing. Number 1, we're going to find your perfect house today. Absolutely. And we're going to do that because I am a real estate professional. I know my craft. I've listened very carefully to you about your needs and your wants. And out of the 500,000 homes in the greater Houston area, I've identified the 8, 9, or 10 that come closest to matching your criteria. So I'm very confident you're going to like a lot of these homes we look at today, and one of them is going to be your perfect home. We're going to buy it today. Number 2, perfect means it meets all of your needs and most of your wants. So this is not a perfect world. Never is anything absolutely perfect, but you said you had to have a 3-car garage. I'm only going to show you homes with a 3-car garage. You said you would like an outdoor kitchen. I'm going to try to find homes that have a 3-car garage and an outdoor kitchen. All of your needs are going to be met by these homes, and most of your wants, as many of your wants as possible. So that's what we mean by perfect. Number 3, we're going to make a strong offer on your perfect home today. So when we find it, we're going to do everything in our power to buy it, to actually secure it for you, because out of the $500,000 homes, the 500,000 homes in this area, this is the one. We're going to find the one, and I want you to get the one. So we're going to make a strong offer. Part of that means you need to bring with you a personal check for the option fee and a cashier's check and the amount of whatever for the earnest money. Typically in our area, earnest money is 1% of the contract price. A option fee would be 1/10 of 1%. So on a $200,000 home, that would be a $200 option fee and a $2,000 earnest money check. I just tell them, go ahead and write out your check for $200 because we're looking at homes in that price range. Get a cashier's check made out to my preferred title company for $2,000 because that earnest money needs to be in the form of a cashier's check so that it can be refunded quickly if the contract busts out. And the personal check can go directly to the seller. We don't know the seller's name yet, so don't write in that, but go ahead and bring with you a personal check for $200 so we'll be ready to go. Number 5, a strong offer means market value or close enough to market value that it doesn't offend the seller. We're setting this expectation in the mind of the buyer that we are not going to lowball the seller. Now, there are certain extenuating circumstances where the home has been on the market for 400 days and the gutters are falling off. So you're going to make an offer considerably lower than list price. But honestly, I don't consider that a lowball offer. I describe lowball in comparison to actual market value. And quite often that bears little resemblance to the list price. So that's why you always have to do your homework on the actual market value of the home and not just trust that the listing agent has put a reasonable price on the home. So you're assisting in this situation that we're describing somebody who's purchasing this home as their primary residence. They're going to live in this home. They're going to raise their kids in this home. They're going to play with their dog in the backyard. Their kids are going to go to school right down the block. There's no reason we have to try to beat up the seller to get this house because this is the house that's perfect for your family. And market value means, by definition, what an unpressured buyer and seller will agree to. It's what most buyers in this area would consider paying for a home like this. So if you're not willing to pay market value, the seller's not going to accept your offer. And if we really come in really low from market value, not necessarily list price, then we could offend the seller and they won't even listen to us after that, even if we come back with a better offer. Homes are very emotional for both buyers and sellers. When we determine the market value of the home, and this is your perfect home, we need to be prepared to pay market price. Now, for negotiating purposes, we may come in a little bit below that, but we need to be prepared to go to market in order to secure your perfect home. Number 6, we will have several negotiations throughout the process. The initial price and terms, repairs, possibly the appraisal. You're just setting the expectation. It's not just done when we submit the offer. I will be your trusted guide throughout the entire process. It's probably been 5 to 7 years since this buyer has gone through the process. Everything has changed since then. Market values, technology, the contract documents themselves, the laws regarding the transaction. Just let them know that you are the professional that will guide them. They don't need to be worried or concerned about anything. In fact, we coach you within the Aspire system to provide them with a document entitled Next Steps, Documents, and Deadlines that gives them the entire picture of what's going to happen in this transaction and in what order, and even fill in the blank where you can write in certain deadlines like delivery of the option fee, financing period, delivery of the HOA docs, that type thing. So they need to have no concerns that they're stepping off the abyss into the unknown with this huge financial transaction. No, you're going to take care of everything. You're going to guide them through everything. Put together your showing list. Number 1, use a buyer needs survey to identify the criteria for the home search. The buyer needs survey simply asks some basic questions about what's most important to you in your next home. Is there anything else that's very important to you in that home? It's designed to be minimalist because it's typically used on the telephone, and we don't want to scare off potential buyers with whom we don't have a relationship with. But I would take that buyer needs survey and use it as the basis to go deeper. Ask them, what are the non-negotiables in your new home? Do you have to be in a certain school district or in a certain neighborhood? Does it have to have 4 bedrooms? Does it have to have a pool? That type thing. Get their needs list and get their wants list. Well, we have to have this. We'd like to have this. And then you can use that as the basis for identifying homes to show them. 8 to 10 homes is ideal. Again, even though there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of homes in the area, they're not all going to match the geographic and price range requirements and size requirements of this particular family. So narrow it down to only those that do. 15 is really the max that you could show in one day. My personal cap was 18. I've showed 18 in one day, and it was really worthless because, after a dozen, everybody's worn out. And even with my proactive showing schedule, which I'm going to share with you, everything starts to run together. So 8 to 10 is ideal. Number 3, allow 15 minutes of viewing time per home plus travel time between homes. So when you're setting your schedule, you definitely want to look at drive times, add 15 minutes for showing. Now, I understand this is a general rule. If you're looking at homes over 3,000 square feet or acreage properties or luxury properties, you'd better allow 30 minutes viewing time per home. But in a typical 2,000 to 3,000 square foot home, 15 minutes per home is just about right. Arrange the homes into an efficient showing order using the HAR directions tool. So again, once you identify all your homes, put them back into HAR so you just have your showing list of homes. This is when you'll click the Quick CMA button to produce that report, but also there's a button at the bottom of the page that says HAR directions, and it will pull up a screenshot similar to what you see on my screen right now, showing the homes that you have selected, and then you can very easily drag and drop them into an efficient showing order. Now, I am going to strongly suggest that the first home that you show them be the one that you think is going to be their favorite, the one that just most closely aligns with their needs and wants. There's some strategy behind this. If you wait till the end of the day to show it to them, they might be worn out and they may not fully appreciate what they're seeing. It's also possible that if it is such a great home, it could be sold by the end of the day. But there's another reason. If you show them the best one first, it's quite possible you won't even have to show the others. The buyers may walk in and say, "This is it. This is perfect. This is it." And if that's the case, you pull out that 1 to 4, you write the offer on the spot, you cancel the other showings, and you go for it from there. If nothing else, that becomes the basis of comparison by which all the other homes are compared, and they'll keep going back. "Oh, that one on Elm Street, that's the one. This doesn't compare to that. The pool's not as nice. This one's an older." So it just gives them an anchor point for comparing throughout the day. Get a pre-approval letter from your preferred lender. Quite often these days, buyers will show up with a pre-approval letter in hand. It will come from Quicken or Rocket Mortgage or some lender you've never heard of before. In my experience, unknown and out-of-town lenders can be a nightmare. They owe no loyalty to you. They often won't speak to you. They don't care that you're in crisis. They don't care that they've missed the closing date. They just don't care. Believe it or not, there are lenders out there like that. I've come across them. So you prefer that your buyers are working with one of your lenders that you know and trust. You know they're competent, they're responsive, they return your phone calls, they care, they commit to their deadlines. You don't get that from somebody that you do not know. So if your client comes to you with a pre-approval letter, I'm going to suggest that you encourage them to get a second opinion, that's important language, from your preferred local lender using language something like this. Well, with something as important as a 30-year mortgage, it's best to get a second opinion. I mean, I would never have heart surgery without getting a second opinion. You're taking on a 30-year financial commitment. Let's at least talk to another lender and see if we can get a better deal on rates and fees. In fact, my preferred lender is virtually never beat on rates and fees. No matter where this pre-approval letter comes from, he seems to always get my buyers a better deal. And if he can't, for whatever reason, at least you'll know that you got the best deal on the market. Now, many buyers are going to be concerned about getting a second opinion because they know that every time their credit's pulled, it dings their credit. That credit's already been dinged once when they got this pre-approval letter. They don't want it being dinged again and perhaps causing them to fall into an unqualified status. Let them know that the federal government wants buyers to shop for rates and fees. Therefore, they require all the credit reporting agencies to count all mortgage company inquiries within a 45-day period as one ding, one credit pull. You've already had that credit pull when you got your pre-approval letter from your first lender. As long as we do it within 45 days, it will not affect your credit whatsoever. With this language and this justification for getting the second opinion, my buyers always will follow. They will always speak with my local lender. And when they do that, the vast majority of the time, we get the deal and the transaction goes much more smoothly. Let's move into phase 2, the home tours. We've been getting ready all of this time, but now we're ready to go show some pretty houses. 3 phases in phase 2, or 3 steps: meet, show, and make that offer. Let's take a look. Meet. If you've not met the buyers, you want to meet them in a public place and make sure that you feel comfortable with them. If not, make up an excuse and cancel. Oh, I'm sorry. I just got a note. My daughter's sick. I must run. I'm so sorry. Far better to be embarrassed than be dead. So if your spidey senses are going off, just don't do it. Number 2, if you have met the buyers previously and you're comfortable with them, you're safe with them, then go ahead and feel free to meet them at the first home on the tour. They're likely going to be driving their own vehicle anyway. Number 3, give them their stack of flyers. Explain the order and the time notations. Again, you're setting the expectations. We have a plan, and it is a time-based plan, so we need to stay on track here. Ask them to make written notes on the flyer of what they like, don't like, unique features or questions and concerns. If there's something especially memorable, have them write that on there. That will help them remember that home among all the others. And then tell them that if they don't like the neighborhood when they drive in, or they don't like the curb appeal of the home when they pull up in front, there's no need to waste time looking at the home. Again, time is our only limitation, and we never want to squander it. Pro tip: I'm going to encourage you to add all the addresses of your showing properties into your GPS in advance. That way there's no wasted time at the curb when you're getting ready to head off the next one and you're putting in your GPS and it's having trouble cycling up, or worse, you discover your GPS doesn't recognize that address, which often happens with new construction. So you want to know in advance that you know where all these homes are. So go ahead and program your GPS in advance. If still the GPS can't find it, and you have some uncertainty about current road work and ability to get back or out of the property, you may want to drive them in advance. Not every home, but at least the one that you're concerned about. Some agents have a practice of previewing every home before they show it to their buyers. I think that makes sense if you're talking about luxury properties, $1 million plus properties. But for a typical home that we usually sell, and $150,000 to $400,000, $500,000, I don't think that's necessary. I think it's a very inefficient practice. I think you're going to learn most of what you need just from your market knowledge of the area, your experience in the area, from what you read on the MLS. But only if you have any specific concern about location or whether the home is in a showable condition should you actually attempt to drive there and preview in advance. Show. Upon arrival at the house, ask them what they think about the neighborhood and curb appeal. So you're getting out of your cars. Hey, what'd you think of the neighborhood? What do you think of the house? If they didn't like the neighborhood, you can't change that. Let's get in our cars and move on. If they don't like the curb appeal, you got to go a little bit deeper. Is it just that the landscaping needs to be refreshed and the shrubs need to be trimmed? That's no big deal. If it's the fact they don't like that 30-foot lava fireplace exterior on the front of the home, or it doesn't have enough light, not enough windows on the front of the home, you can't change that inexpensively. Get in the car and move on. Make a quick call to the showing service to cancel the appointment. Then, if they like the neighborhood, they're okay with the curb appeal, then you lead them to the front door, because you've got to get the key out of the lockbox. So just to walk up there loud and proud. When you get to the front door, ring the doorbell and knock loudly. Even if it's an unoccupied or vacant home, even if it's new construction, surprises happen, and you don't want them to happen to you and to your client. So ring the doorbell, knock loudly, obtain a key from the lockbox and open the door, then lean in. And I suggest you call out in a loud voice, "Realtor." Let them know you are there. Stuff happens. I've got many, many stories. One of my clients actually pulled a gun on an inspector who came to inspect the home. He hadn't scheduled the appointment. He didn't ring the doorbell. He didn't knock. Didn't announce himself. He just took the key out of the lockbox and went in, and she drew down on him with a .357. Fortunately, After some screaming and cursing, he left and all was well. But stuff happens. You don't want to embarrass people. You don't want to catch them off guard. And again, just one more example, because I want to drive this home to you. On one occasion, I arrived early for the showing, but I rang the doorbell. I was on time, but I was there ahead of my clients. They were running late, so it was showing time. So I went ahead and went through this routine, rang the doorbell, knocked, leaned in, shouted, but my spidey senses were going off. I looked over, I saw lots of laundry laying on the floor, like somebody had dumped their clean laundry but hadn't folded it yet. That was a sign to me. People don't typically leave their home in that condition for a showing. But then I looked over on the kitchen table and there was a woman's purse. Well, that says to me there's a woman in the house. Women don't leave their purse behind. So I stepped out. I went through the same routine several times. Knock, ring the doorbell, shout, still no response. So I go into the home. I'm halfway up the stairs, and a woman walks out of a bedroom. She was ill. She had stayed home, had her door closed, was running a little sound dampening machine so she could sleep well. Her husband had not informed her of the showing appointment. Fortunately, it was fine. She was fine. I didn't get shot. She was dressed. It all worked out, but just be careful. Be careful. Go through this routine and make sure it's safe. Now, when you're reasonably confident that nobody's home, step back and invite your clients to go in first and explore the home. Explain that you'll follow behind them looking for areas of concern. So while they're looking at the design and layout, perhaps the decor of the home and commenting on how pretty it is, you are looking up at ceilings, you're looking at door jambs that may be a little cattywampus, you're looking for water stains, any evidence of lack of homeowner maintenance or repair items that may need to be addressed. That's what you're looking for structurally, but there's also some safety concerns that have to be addressed at this moment when you first walk in the door. You ask them to explore the home, let them know you'll be available for questions, but then you walk directly to the back door of the home, unlock it, open it up, because this now gives you two means of exit from the property should you need them. Don't ever follow your clients into small rooms. If it's a small 10 by 10 bedroom, let them go in and look. You can stay out on the hallway. And never let them get between you and the exit. So if they're back in the bedrooms and they start coming out, then you back out and you move to the open areas of the home near the front door and then let them move to the other portions. But you always stay closest to the front door or the back door so you have immediate exit if necessary. Front door is preferable. And then I also recommend as strongly as I can that you keep your keys in your hand the entire time with pepper spray at the ready. It's very natural for a realtor to carry keys in their hand that won't draw any undue attention, but that is something that you immediately have at the ready that you can use to disable an attacker even momentarily, to allow you time to escape. I'm a big believer in the Second Amendment, but I don't think a handgun in this situation is practical. By the time you're digging it out of your purse or your bag or your ankle holster, they've already knocked you over the head. So the pepper spray in hand is the best defense for a realtor. Number 8, if they really like the home, invite them to check out the backyard. And again, if this is a real possibility, walk the perimeter of the entire home. While they're commenting on that beautiful magnolia tree, you're looking for areas of concern, old shingles, cracked foundation, a leaning fence, soggy patches in the backyard, termite tunnels on the slab, a noisy AC unit, those type of things. When you find areas of concern, just mention to the buyers that if they decide to make an offer on the property, these are issues that you'll want to address either in the initial offer, if you know it's an item that needs to be repaired, or you can have your inspector pay special attention to it during the inspection conducted during the option period. Warning: do not volunteer an opinion about whether or not you like the design, colors, or amenities in the home. Taste is personal, and their taste may not be yours. Agents have been doing this very long, have all got stories where they walk into a home and they're just horrified at the orange carpet or some other feature of the home, only to discover that their buyers find it attractive. They're the ones buying the home, not you. It's their opinion that matters, not yours. So please don't try to be the expert. It doesn't matter if the finishes in the home are outdated. Maybe you're horrified by Formica countertops. I've heard many buyers say they prefer Formica to granite or quartz for various reasons. So again, just zip it up. You're looking for structural issues, repair issues, things that may enter into the safety or proper functioning of the home, but you are not rendering an opinion on design issues in the home unless they ask. And sometimes, even if they ask, be very careful, because sometimes they don't really want to know. But sometimes they'll ask you in terms of resale value in the future. Well, if we purchase a home like this, even though we like it, we'll be able to sell it in the future. And that's where your professional opinion can come into play. But keep your personal opinions to yourself. Number 12, the fun begins. After you've shown them the very first home, you want to ask them this question while you're still in the home. If this were the only house on the market and your only choice, could you see yourself living here? Now, if they say, no, absolutely not, we wouldn't live here if it was the last house on earth, then ask them to take that showing sheet, separate it from the binder clip or the paper clip, and tear it right in half. It's a very dramatic way of saying this home is not an option. And now we don't even have to think about it anymore. Okay, so now instead of trying to remember 10 houses, we only have to remember 9. If they say yes, it may not be perfect, but yeah, it meets most of our needs, or all of our needs, most of our wants. I think we could live here. Then tell them that this is now the leading contender against which the other homes will be compared. And then when you look at the next home, you'll say, well, do I like that one better than this one? So you're going to follow this same routine at every home. So in the second home, you're going to say, could you see yourself living here? If they say absolutely not, then tear it up. If they say yes, then say, well, do you like it better than the first home, the one that we're comparing against? If they say, yeah, I think we do like it better, then we tear up number 1, because we only want one leading contender, one favorite home. Now, sometimes the buyers will say, we really prefer this one, but this one is so close, we really don't want to tear it up. Then that's okay, but tuck it back into a backup position. You always only want to compare against one, and you'll do that through the whole process. When you look at number 7, do you like it better than the one that's the leading contender? So by the time you get to the end of the day, you only have one home, and they don't have to remember all 10. It'll be the home that they have the flyer sheet for in their hand. It's a wonderful, fun way to find them their perfect home. By the 3rd or 4th time, the kids will be wanting to tear up the sheet themselves and be part of the process. Make an offer. So we found them their perfect home. I'm going to say at the last house, ask if they're certain, which is their favorite home. They may say, yeah, it was that number 5. Number 5, that is it. Okay. So ask if they like it enough to make it their new home. Now, I'm presuming, when I set expectations, we are going to find their perfect home, but again, we don't live in a perfect world, so let's just make sure, is this it? If it's yes, then talk them through the process of buying. Here's what's going to happen. Use your next steps, documents, and deadlines form. Offer, negotiations, final contract, inspections, appraisal, final loan approval, closing. In other words, it's not over just because we submit an offer. And if you are going to go forward with writing this offer, go ahead and pull up the disclosures on your iPad or your laptop. Create a little hotspot if you have to. Show them the disclosures. There may be some things on there that are areas of concern. Perhaps it flooded. Perhaps there have been foundational issues. Anything that would cause a red flag for the buyers and make them uncomfortable moving forward. You want to know that up front. So if the buyers are flexible on the closing date, I would call the listing agent, let them know, hey, we love your home, got an offer coming. Does the seller have any preference on closing date? Because we want to present a contract that gets accepted. It's going to be a strong offer, remember? And part of that may be accommodating some of the special needs of the seller if the buyer has some flexibility there. Now you want to show your buyer the comps, use your quick CMA, and decide on an appropriate offer price and terms. Terms being, are we going to ask for a home warranty? Are we going to ask for a seller contribution, closing date, those type things. Write the contract on the spot. Remember, we brought that blank 1 to 4 family. Obtain signatures, take the checks, and then let your buyers know that you're going straight back to your office and you're going to send them some additional documents for review and signature. And this would be the seller disclosures, HOA, MUD, anything of that nature that they also need to sign. You may say, well, why don't you just do it all as one package, send them the 1 to 4 with everything else? I like the emotional bond that's created with the home when they go ahead and sign the contract and they give you the checks. It almost makes these supplemental docs an afterthought rather than forcing them to re-engage with the whole process of, is this really our house? So this is the process that I prefer and has worked very well for me and my buyers. Now, once they write up that offer and you submit it, you want to protect your closing. So advise your buyers not to do anything to jeopardize their credit prior to closing. Don't change jobs, don't skip a rent payment, don't buy furniture, don't go buy a new car, don't open new lines of credit, and don't close any existing lines of credit. That will also hurt your credit score. And then secondly, very importantly, advise your buyers to start planning life in their new home, but not continuing to look at other homes. I mean, we're engaged. We don't need to keep looking around. We're heading down the aisle. We're going to be at the altar soon. It's not time to be, committed to one, but reaching around and playing around with another, like you see happening in the photo there. No, we've made a commitment. We're engaged. Let's see this one through. If something blows up, we'll go find you another home. But let's see this process through. Let's not distract and confuse ourselves. Well, there you go. Congratulations. You have now written a contract and you are on your way to closing and a commission. But that contract is going to be received by a listing agent, and no doubt there's going to be some pushback, perhaps on price or terms. So I'm going to encourage you to take our next class in this series, the Aspire class on negotiations. We call it Put Some Sugar With It. In other words, we want you to be sweet, kind, respectful to all parties in the transaction, but we also want you to fight like a tiger. We want you to adequately represent your client. That's your fiduciary responsibility, and frankly, it's one of the primary expectations by both buyers and sellers of their agent. They want somebody who's going to not necessarily aggressively, but adequately and successfully represent their best interests. We'll teach you how to do that and Put Some Sugar With It. Again, my name is Frank Gray. I appreciate you joining me on this journey through our show and sell buyer conversion class. Let me know anytime I can help you sell more houses.